So you've raised your kids, and now they are ready to conquer the world and start living their absolute best lives. Good to go, right? Maybe not. Hey, all, it's Sarah here, your host at What's on Your Plate podcast. This is a really interesting and necessary conversation today. Why are so many young adults feeling dazed and confused in life when we as parents think we have prepared them to be capable and competent, self-assured in their paths to building a life they love? For us older generations who get the movie reference, we're not talking about substance abuse here. What we are talking about in today's episode is the very different things and altered realities that today's youth are dealing with. As well-intended as parents are, the ways they may have contributed to how young adults are showing up, or rather not showing up for life, is just one of the many topics we're shining light on today. Listen in. This is going to be a good one. Okay. I am here today with Hillary Spiritos. She is the founder of Bat Outta Hell and is helping young adults rewire their pathways in the story of what they're told they want versus what they actually want. She's a pathfinding coach, guiding people back towards themselves rather than looking outward for what success should look like. Developing courage, grit, creativity, resourcefulness, and resiliency. Hillary is here talking about why current cohorts are so uncertain, so uncomfortable, and what we can do about it. Welcome, Hillary. I'm so excited that you're here today.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here and speak to you.
It was so interesting when we had our discovery call and just the different things that you had to say about why there seems to be so much of a struggle with what we are going to be, I guess, referring to as the current cohort. That is young adults kind of transitioning out of either high school or more likely university and into just the workforce, so to speak, and why there seems to be this like aimless, misguided, confusing type of situation going on.
Absolutely. And so I think there are the general answers to that question, as in,
Hmm.
for so long, we go and do the same things at the same pace with as everybody else. And so once you get to university or once you get past university, especially, those tracks kind of fade away. And so it just is a time of exploration and anxiety and feeling like you don't know what you're doing and trying to figure it out in general. Um, I do think that while this is a common feeling for young people of every generation, I do think that millennials and Gen Z are dealing with a different set of issues that compounds these feelings. So whether it's social media, dealing with the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, the results of helicopter parenting, the fact that a lot of the systems that are in place in the world today are broken and trying to get a grip in a world that is constantly shifting under their feet, and let alone the whole general climate change, social unrest. All so it's just a real thing that young people are trying to build a sustainable, fulfilling, interesting life in this world that is can be quite challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes to everything that you just said there. I mean, I feel like as somebody far beyond the current cohort, I mean, I can also relate to just struggling with all of the things that you're talking about. So, but as a young adult trying to find their path, it is very different than somebody who has been, into adulthood, so to speak, for generations. So tell me a little bit about how you found yourself understanding that there was a need for this type of specific work.
Sure. So I started out in this space when I was an RA in Duke University when I was an undergrad, and I just really loved having these conversations with young adults about who they were, what they wanted out of their college career, what they were interested in, what they were passionate about. And then I became an academic advisor at Northeastern and NYU. And I realized that young adults were really looking for someone to listen to them and speak to them that wasn't a parent, friend, or a therapist, because those groups, as ideally well-meaning, they parents can't relate, friends aren't objective and are going through it the same as you, and you might not need to be diagnosed, you might not have a mental health condition that needs to be diagnosed. And so I found that young adults were really looking for someone who was a near peer, objective person who could help guide them through these questions and navigate their path and help them build and develop the tools needed to muster up the courage to move on their own. And so during the pandemic, I had past students, current students, family, friends, people that I knew in different areas reaching out to talk to me. And so I realized that there was this need in this unique in-between space. And so I opened up Bat Outta Hell at a very fortuitous time in 2020. And it's been going on ever since.
Oh, that's really cool. And I love the name Bat Out of Hell and just the way that you describe sort of the origins of that on your platform, on your website, about how bats are highly adaptable and social, perceptive creatures, and they symbolize rebirth and can navigate in the dark. And bats trust their own senses and spend a lot of time upside down and seeing the world in a different perspective. And that describes young adults too, and trying to navigate through just like the very unknown, right? So I think it's really cool. I love just the way that you've kind of created that identity for your company. It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, all of that, I've always felt a real kinship with bats, and all of that is part of the reason. I
Hmm.
also, exactly what you're saying, young adults, I love this about them, that there's no such thing as this is how it's always been done. They're not here for things that don't serve them, and they are taking ownership of these spaces and trying to create new. And I think that's brilliant and really exciting and what is needed. And I
Hmm.
also think that I chose a name that is a little bit edgy, perhaps a little bit left of center, because I wanted a name that would underscore my ethos, which is I'm not a this is how it's always been done person, let alone coach. I'm not cookie cutter. I'm joyous. It's gonna be a little funky, but um it's gonna be an enjoyable but tough like process to go through, but you'll really come out a different person on the other end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said a little bit ago about being somebody that is like a near peer. I think that really makes a big difference because somebody who is maybe, a decade younger than you, can see themselves in you more than they can a parent, or a grandparent, perhaps, because what young adults are dealing with now and what they're presented with, what is before them, is quite different from what their parents or grandparents faced at that same age. So, yeah, that kind of just, this is how it's always been. I think that doesn't work really well anymore. And there is a mentality of just wanting something entirely different. And they can see that more in somebody like yourself than they can a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two sides to this, I think, or two answers. One of them is exactly what you're saying. So, how to apply for a job. Dating is completely different. Like
Hmm.
just navigating the world of today and understanding the societal and cultural pressures of what's happening today and being in the world and in the zeitgeist is different than what other generations might understand. So, it really helps to have someone who's a near peer. But I also think that just having someone who isn't a relative is just generally beneficial, because
Hmm.
I know that even like when I talk to my mom, I'm sometimes like, God, you don't understand what I'm saying. Like, and
Hmm.
also it's just helpful to hear it from somebody who is not so close. It lands differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit about the types of young adults that you're working with in terms of like we said earlier, like everybody kind of struggles at that part in life in terms of like, where do I go? What do I do? But kids or young adults that are coming out of something that is like structured and formalized, like university, and then it's like they get out and it's like their blinders are on. It's like they don't know what to do at that point. You think that you have like set your kid up on this like successful path in life and given them the opportunities to like you think from the parental perspective blaze their own trail and find their own purpose and all that. And then they get out and they're just like, for lack of a better way to describe it, kind of going in circles and not really knowing what to do. And understanding why that's happening, maybe what circumstances that you notice or have seen a pattern in terms of where these young adults are coming from in terms of family situations, like what's causing this type of like, I guess, emotional, mental kind of unrest with kids that seemingly have all the tools they need to move forward.
That's a really interesting question, and I'd like to kind of section it into parts. I think so. Firstly, there's no typical person that comes in to work with me. So it comes from some people know exactly what they want to talk about and they're looking to figure out what they want to major in or figure out what industry they want to pivot into or figure out why their dating life isn't exactly how they want it to look. But some people come in a little bit more general and feeling like, I'm not really sure what I want to fix or the problem that I'm trying to solve, but I know that I don't want to feel like this anymore. I know that I don't know exactly where I want to go and I want to try to figure that out. So that's interesting. I also think that you mentioned the word successful. It's kind of it that's one thing that we definitely talk about is what is your understanding of success and what do you think that you should be doing and why do you feel like that's not sitting right with you? Um, and I would also just say that parents, this is a generalization, but I think I hopefully from the most well-meaning, loving side of them can sometimes either instill messaging to their kids that get this kind of education, kind of those stories, which can be really challenging for young people to wade through. But I also think that I have a lot of clients whose parents have often removed all the obstacles and done things for them and helped them in ways that might have been loving and serving them in the moment, but not necessarily helping them build the tools that we spoke about at the beginning, which is resilience, self-reliance, self-trust, all of that. And so as these young adults move through the world, they don't have that core that they can rely on. And so my work with them is to help them build that and to also help them recognize that they have the makings and they have done things previously that they can use to like help them build those tools.
Hmm. So the terms like helicopter parent, bulldozer parent, those terms kind of come to mind when you're talking about um, just sort of clearing the way and removing the obstacles that are before them. And yeah, it is certainly from a place of well-intention, right? That parents think that that's the best thing to do or like pay for everything or provide everything or um, make something easier so maybe they don't have to like go through the same thing they did or every parent wants their kid to have a better experience than they did themselves, right? So I can see why that could be something that happens for sure. And but not letting them like struggle, right? Not letting them figure it out themselves along the way. Every time you forget something, maybe it starts young. Like every time you forget something, like oh, they run and bring your lunch or they run and bring your homework or things that you don't have to like be accountable for and then that just kind of compounds over the years into bigger things being something that they don't have to like figure out themselves.
Absolutely. And I have had clients say exactly that to me and say, like, I have never had to rely on myself to do this. I have never been in a situation. So I have a client who is looking to pursue a new career in a new industry. And they are feeling that they have never really had to show themselves that they can do something different and figure it out, and that they can rely on themselves, that they're going to be okay no matter what happens because they have the ability and they have the skills and tools. Um, which in my work with them, we recognize that that's how you build the skills and tools, by doing the things, but also we mine their past like experiences to know, oh, look, when you did this, you have shown that you have the ability to go outside of your comfort zone and grow in that way. And so I think definitely having parents or anybody in your life who removes obstacles does not build grit, does not build fortitude. And I think that can make the like life moving forward can be very challenging for these young adults in that way.
Well, it would make a lot of sense. If you if you've never been allowed to fall down, or every time you do, somebody's literally picking you up and you're not sure how to like get up yourself and dust your knees off kind of thing, how are you going to know how to do that the next time you fall and nobody's around to catch you? So yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Talk about like other ways though, like outside of homes or adults' influence. Where are young adults finding challenges now where they didn't before? We had talked about like social media and how that plays a role.
Sure. I mean, social media is huge. And so I I don't necessarily believe in demonizing social media. I think there is a lot to be gained from social media and a lot of things that it's additive in a way. But I do think that it contributes to all of the voices that we hear all the time and constantly that are saying how you should look, how you should live your life, what you should do, what's success. And then all of these people who are billionaires by the time that they're 20 breeds comparison. And then you're constantly comparing yourself to somebody else's projected, curated
Yeah.
demonstration of their themselves and their life, and it can get very challenging, and a lot of young adults feel or can feel from that and from other instances that they feel either behind, they feel like everybody else around them knows exactly what they're doing and they don't know. But I think we definitely talk about social media and we go in depth with the work that I do with my clients, but I think what's interesting to note is that one trend I do see is that vulnerability and especially authenticity is becoming what is like valued on social media now,
Mhm.
which seems to be really exciting. This idea that people are sharing, oh, I'm feeling lost. Oh, I'm feeling like I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm doing. That's really inspiring because I feel like that's helping people recognize that it's okay to feel this way. We're all feeling this way. We're not alone, and that's really fortifying. But yeah, social media is is very challenging, and you have to be very aware of why you're using it, what's it for, recognize that it's not a neutral platform. It's definitely designed for well, not even entertainment, it's definitely designed for um engagement. And so you have to be aware that it's not actually your algorithm is feeding you things that might not be actually beneficial for you.
Definitely. And an addictive platform as well, they all are. So they want you to keep coming back and viewing the same type of thing that is probably not serving you because of how you've clicked on things and how the algorithm then communicates that to the device in
Sure.
front of you. Um, I think that's one of the biggest things, like in terms of like what does the youth of today have in terms of influence, for better or for worse, that older generations, my generation included, and beyond, didn't have. We didn't have it right in front of us to have this constant comparison of us versus them, of something that we see on socials. And more often than not, it's a very polished, like only show the perfect version of something on social media. Most people, it's starting to change now, but most people aren't showing like every single trip and fall along the way to that $20 million you're talking about, which isn't typical, honestly. I mean, it's in the big scheme of things, it's a very small percentage of people in that age group achieving that instantly, right? So,
Right.
but it's in front of you and you see it and you're like, oh, that's what I should be doing. Why isn't that me? What am I doing wrong? Kind of thing. And then getting really stuck in just the kind of lies you tell yourself as to why that's not your reality.
Yeah, and I think again, it comes back to awareness. So it comes back to asking yourself what you're trying to get from it, recognizing all of the things that we've spoken about, but also reminding yourself that your worth is not measured by the amount of likes that you get,
Yeah.
or, it's not a replacement for real in-person human connection. It should be a
Hmm.
supplement. And so I think it's very important. I do think that we're dealing with a loneliness epidemic as well. And so
Yeah.
I do think that young people, that's why people are looking for a third space. Young people are craving connection. And I think that social media, while it seems like connection, and in some ways it kind of is, it really doesn't serve and fulfill the same need. Um, but definitely, I think I talk to my clients a lot about taking breaks, being really cognizant and skeptical about content, and setting limits on yourself about the time, how long you're going to use it. Um, and also just recognize that, as you're saying, someone else's life, real or fake,
Hmm.
has almost or not any bearing on your life at all. And so it's really a mental practice and it is very challenging, but it's all about recognizing that just because they're doing this and social media is telling me that I should value this doesn't mean that I actually value it. And it also doesn't make any difference to my daily existence. My life hasn't actually changed by seeing what this person is doing.
Right. Geez, yeah, we could have a whole nother conversation just on the consequences of social media influence in our lives, right? I mean, there's just so many moving parts to that. But one thing you said within that I think is really key is for people to really understand that this is not your real life, so to speak. And it should be used as a tool and nothing else, not a way to really entertain ourselves or even educate ourselves to a certain degree. You can get snippets of that, but really, you know, dig deeper for sure.
Yeah.
But, I would love to hear you talk about too, what is it that parents are doing or adult influences are doing to make things worse for these young adults. They see that the problem is developing. They have, maybe a recent graduate who is feeling kind of lost and having some mental health problems as a result. And there doesn't seem to be like anything that is helping. What can they do? And maybe that's it right there. Maybe their help isn't helping. But what are parents doing to make this situation worse than it already is?
That's a really interesting question. And I think one thing that I would like to say is that it's often not something that the parents are actively doing or necessarily currently actively doing. So, what I mean by that is, I think that the only way to live your fullest, fiercest, most authentic life is by forming and developing and creating a relationship with your inner child. And
Mhm.
what that really means is unpacking the stories that you have learned unconsciously or consciously when you were a child that have formed your understanding of how you need to behave currently. Because that is really where I find the blocks are. So, because we as children really want love, safety, and security, well, we need that to survive and we want approval and acceptance. And so we adapt and amend our behavior to get that and not get rejection, embarrassment, and shame. And so what I really am all about is trying to dig deeper and recognize, oh, I heard my parents said once that like business is the only way to be successful, or I heard that someone say the arts are not worth anyone's time, or whatever these, or success is all about money, or whatever it is. So it's less about, I mean, let's be real, if there is something that the parent is saying that is not aligning with the young adult in real time, i.e., I have a client who their parent is saying they need to go into business and they do really love art, that is a problem, right? And that
Hmm.
is going to lead to dissatisfaction. And in that case, I'm working with the client to help them realize their power and be an adult in their life and recognize that they don't need to look for the approval of others. But again, going back to my previous statement, it is mostly, I often find, about the stuff we learn as children
Hmm.
that may or may not be even said like out loud. So it's about unpacking that. So, and I think that's something that it would be very challenging for a parent to do that themselves. Um,
Hmm.
so I think that's an important conversation or like an introspection that young adults need to have, which
Yeah,
I
it's
help
something
guide
that,
them through.
right. And I'm so glad you brought up the inner child work. I know that's a big piece of what you do, and getting people to unpack that themselves, because the parent may not even realize,
Sure.
and maybe the client doesn't even realize exactly what the thing was, that led them to believing what they do now that is kind of destructive for their own path. It's not something that people generally do intentionally or even have a memory of sometimes. But it's interesting what you're talking about. I actually do have a memory of somebody that said something very formative to me at a pretty young age where I remember it to this day. It was, driving past a area that was underprivileged, and there were people that were homeless. And the comment was, if you don't go to college and get a degree, that will be you. And that's not true, first and foremost, right? But that was the belief that was put into my brain at a very young age. And that type of thinking forms your thoughts into adulthood. And I'm sure there's many instances your clients have either memories they can remember or things that are just subconscious that they need to work through and kind of deconstruct to get to that knowing of their own versus something that somebody else kind of downloaded into them.
Absolutely. And the truth is that until you own your fears, insecurities, and anxieties, and until you own these stories and whether or not, and you wrestle with them, you're at the mercy of them. And so if you learn something as a young person and you don't deal with it, it's going to continue to come up in your adult life because it's going to manifest. And
Hmm.
it's all about how your specific fears, insecurities, and anxieties manifest with your specific and interact with your specific circumstances. And it's going to keep coming up until you decide to deal with it, understand it, recognize it, own it, and then you can be conscious when they arise and say, I don't want to live my life from a place of fear. I don't want to bow down to these emotions. I want to continue on my path. Or you can also say, oh, right, I need to change direction because that wasn't even my path to begin with. I actually want to do this. This was just some story that I've also told myself over and over again. So it's this mining that is all about like finding out who you really are, what you really value, and what you really want your life to look like outside of all of that noise and fear and insecurity that you have developed over time.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. And finding that empowerment again within ourselves. It was there once in our youth, right? We all have had it at one point, and it gets very diluted as time goes on, unfortunately.
Absolutely. So it's I really find that in your inner child, it's really where the passion and curiosity and like spark and zest for life and all of that exists. And so over time, we mute and dull that so that we're more palatable for others. And it is really about digging into it and then unleashing that, but you can't unleash that without also unleashing your fears, insecurities, and anxieties about it because you don't want to feel shame, rejection, or embarrassment.
Mhm.
And it's about um, holding space for all of that in yourself, which is, I think, what real self-love is.
Mhm.
And then in that way, that's also real self-love. You can hold that out for other people, and you'll be ultimately more understanding and less judgmental and more empathetic because you'll recognize that everybody else holds all of that within themselves. Um, so I think I mean, there was this whole Instagram or TikTok thing a long time ago about joy is about returning to what you were doing when you were 13 years old. I mean, that's what this is all about. Like, what did you want when you were younger that you learned in some way that like wasn't good enough or acceptable? And whether that's exactly what you want to be doing now or not, it will help figure that out.
So when you're working with people who are finding themselves in those places of uncertainty and uncomfortableness because they are feeling like unsure about themselves and their future, how do you get them to the place of digging into that deeper?
Absolutely. So it first starts, I have worksheets, but it also starts with conversation. So I have a worksheet that I've developed that helps people get to the root of who they really are. And
Mhm.
I have another worksheet that helps to get to the understanding of what they really value and what they really want their life to look like and how they imagine their dream life to be. And then we discuss and we talk about is like what's behind that? Where does that come from? What lessons did you learn? Are those true? Did they serve you? All of those questions we dig into. And then we also discuss what's blocking you from getting to those things and reaching for those things. And and then we create like an actionable strategic plan that can help you move forward and bring all that into your new moving forward. I would also say that after we figure out what like blocks you have, we reevaluate all the things that we've spoken about in the beginning. So we'll reevaluate the worksheet that was who you really are, what you really value, what you want your life to look like, because generally, after all of these discussions, those things have probably changed and developed. Um, and so I actually have a 3-month program called Aligned and Alive. And so that's really the structure of that. But I also have clients who work with me outside of that program. But it really is based on conversation because it really is, it's driven by the client.
Mhm.
Yeah, meeting them exactly where they're at.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think that there's so much that can get in our own way when it comes to thinking about what you're supposed to be doing and what you're supposed to be wanting in life and the shoulds, right? So helping people who just aren't connecting with that, like figure out what they do want. What is it that aligns for them? What is it that resonates? And I think that that can take a lot of work sometimes because
Sure.
you are only going to develop the mindset to which you are influenced on a consistent basis from. And if all you've been told throughout your formative years is what somebody else's idea of success is, and it doesn't align with yours, like you said in the beginning of this conversation, like there's work to do for sure. This isn't like a quick fix. You have to be willing to like show up for yourself and deconstruct this a bit.
Absolutely. I think this is I was gonna say this is serious business, but I also work with a lot of joy with my clients. But it
Mhm.
is work. It is something that you're really asking yourself these intense questions and digging in and being, you have to be really honest with yourself, because if you're not going to be honest with yourself and try to really like get to the root of this, then it's not going to be worth your time, and you're also not going to get the results you want. Um, so I think, yeah, but I think if you're sitting there feeling like you don't really know what you want to do, or if you're feeling like you can see your life however many years from now, and you know that you don't want to be there, but you don't know how to get from here to somewhere else, or you do know exactly where you want to be, but you don't know how to get there, like these are the conversations that we like to be having. And or if you're just feeling like there's something blocking me from taking that next step, that's also an important conversation in place to start. So if you're just feeling like you can't quite figure it out, and you don't know what your path is, or you don't know how to get on your path, that's where it's really exciting to talk about.
Yeah. I wonder what your opinion is on, there's always been conversations throughout my life where people have said, um, they don't know what they want to do right out of high school or they're not sure what they want to do with the rest of their life. And most of the time we think that that's reasonable because how could you know at that young of an age, like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life kind of thing? It seems like a big thing to know so young. But I guess my question is, do you think that that indecision is related to just the things that we've been told that we should want? Like if we were never deeply influenced by way of other people's opinions in what success should look like, do you think there would be more people that did know at a young age and they did just step right into what they wanted to do for the rest of their life at that young age and it wouldn't be so unclear?
I think this is a really interesting question. And I'm so glad you asked, but I don't necessarily know if I believe that there would be more people who know, but I do think that there would be more people who would be willing to try.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure if you would know. I also believe that it's ridiculous to ask somebody who has just graduated college or in their 20s or even necessarily early 30s that like do they know exactly what they want to be doing? Hopefully by late 20s, early 30s, or whatever point you like know what you want to be doing at that moment, or you're enjoying what you are doing at that moment.
Hmm.
But this idea of knowing exactly what you want to be doing for the rest of your life, well, I don't really know anyone whose life has literally done their life has done the same exact thing throughout.
Hmm.
So I think part of it is exactly what you're saying. Young people feel like they should have this answer,
Yeah.
and they feel like like I have a lot of clients who feel like once they graduate or once they have gotten into this new career and they land that job, they're set. And that's not the case, right? It's not that you should absolutely know exactly what you want all at all times and you should never change. But I also think that there is a real feeling of I don't want to fail. I don't want to make the wrong step. I want to be successful. And again, it has to dig into what success and failure means to you or what you've learned success and failure means. But I think that that is definitely related to and blocking young people from giving it a shot. Like, okay, I'll try this and I think I like it. I don't know if I'll like it. I've never done it before, but I'll try it. I'll learn something, even if I don't like it, and then I'll try something else. And that I think that train of thought is difficult for my clients.
Yeah. I gotta believe that a lot of that kind of fear of failure in certain generations over others has a lot to do with just how everybody is more visible at this point in
Sure.
time too. Um, because, there's that idea that generations my age and older say, thank goodness there wasn't like smartphones or social media back when we were kids because like everything we did that we shouldn't have done would have been on the internet. And that's the case these days, right? Or not even that you shouldn't have done, but that maybe you tried and it didn't work out, is oftentimes very public. And that really can get you in the mindset and headspace of not enoughness and not good enough, I'm not worthy, imposter syndrome, right? All the things that can kind of compile because of everybody like is viewing your mistake, so to speak. So I think that's like a- I really think that's one of the downfalls of the social world at this
Sure.
point in time, for sure. Um, what about your opinion on, because of probably the way the world is now in terms of visibility, but just that now kind of culture? Like, you think that you should be just doing it now versus not building up to something and working towards something bigger. It's like everybody wants something yesterday that really, in reality, takes 5, 10 years to get to.
Yeah, and I think that manifests in different ways. So I have a client who in within our conversations was speaking about how they don't necessarily want an entry level position and they had just
Mm.
graduated college. And I that was part of a question or part of the conversation about why that was and why they didn't think an entry level position was acceptable. And I also think that goes back to not necessarily putting oneself out there. So sometimes they feel like, you know, you want to be really good at basketball, but you're not good at basketball now. So you don't practice, and then you can never be good at it. So things, or or for another example, you don't know what you're passionate about. So you quit something, you quit everything quite quickly because you're not really enjoying it, but you don't realize that the more you do something, the better at it you'll get, and the more you'll enjoy it. And that's where you
Hmm.
build passion. So what part of what you're talking about is a stop before you even engage because you feel like you should already have it, which is a huge block, is very detrimental to not only engaging in your life, but also getting to where you want to get to. Life is very long, hopefully, and it's all an adventure. And if you try to see that, like reframe obstacles as possibilities of growth and recognize that if you try something and you might not love it or you might not thrive, but you'll learn something and then you'll get to the next part. And there's always this idea of, oh, I don't want to start again. I don't want to have this job and then start again, trying something new. But you're never actually starting from zero. It's because
Hmm.
you're coming with a whole set of skills and lessons and understanding and perspectives that you didn't have before. So it's just
Hmm.
a reframing of your understanding of all of these topics and all these definitions and how you want and deciding how you want to live your life and engage in your life.
I love how you described all that. That makes so much sense to me. Something that popped up for me in what you just we're speaking on is in regards to that now mentality, of not like building up. Do you think some of that mindset has to do with some of that like bulldozing type of parenting where it's like things are just kind of instantly available or provided, or you're not really having to help towards something that is yours. Like maybe somebody is just given a car or they're given tuition or the whatever the case may be, like it's just provided and it's like provided now. You didn't have to like even really know where it came from other than like it came from my parent kind of thing. But really not having a deeper understanding of how that was possible to be able to provide that instantaneously. Is that something that you think is part of the issue?
I think there are definitely different factors and varying factors, and it depends on the person, but I definitely think that is part of it, that plays a part. Because if you just receive something, then as we talked about, you don't develop as a person in different ways that will help you in the future. Like if you if you just if you just get something, it's not going to make you feel like you've earned it. It's not going to make you feel like you have developed the practice of working towards something. So I do think that feeling like you get something instantly without even trying is part of it. I also think, as we talked about, social media is part of it, and that you don't necessarily want to show that you have tried so many iterations. Um, I think that there are many reasons for it, but I I think it's really stopping young people from living their fullest, most authentic life because they just feel like they won't even engage in something that is different or engage in
Hmm.
something that they're not sure they're going to be successful at or happy with. And you will not know until you try. A lot of people are trying to live their life before actually living it. And I think that that's
Yeah.
another thing. They're like seeing all this domino rally of like what's going to happen this. But they actually haven't taken the first step and they don't actually even know like that entry level job could lead you to meeting that person that could lead you to being this in this company or could be your boyfriend or could be like so
Yeah.
life is just it's too much to even like plan out in that way. It's not possible.
Hmm.
So I think that's another thing. People can like get too carried away in their minds that they just
Hmm.
freeze. Um, and it's a little bit about unpacking what that fear is and where that comes from. So there's a lot of
Hmm.
different things here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that just receiving instead of also learning how to like give kind of thing. I feel like it removes it removes your ability to know how to feel proud of yourself.
Sure.
And I think that's a really important component in just progression in life and certainly into becoming an adult is being proud of yourself for something that you did, that you created, that you handcrafted, right? Um, and when you don't do that, like when you can't take the um, affirmation for something, right? That you did it, when you can't like say I'm proud of myself because I whatever insert accomplishment, I think that really disempowers us. We don't know what that
Yeah.
feels like.
Well, this I think is really interesting as well because oftentimes when I talk to clients, they'll be saying something and I'll have to stop them and say, "Do you recognize what you've done? Like, do you recognize that you've done this really
Hmm.
interesting, creative,
Yeah.
bold like thing?" And
Hmm.
oftentimes they don't take stock of it, and that is also very challenging because we have this idea, I like to talk about this idea of courage, that it is this big, bold, you run into a burning building, you move to a different country, like they're big things. And we don't
Hmm.
necessarily recognize that we actually all engage in acts of courage on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And we are all quite badass in different ways. And so sometimes when you diminish that, you you just continue feeling like you're not worthy or that you're not capable and you don't realize like I had a client who um was really kept talking down her accomplishments and it was just making it her feel that she wasn't able to do anything like she's never done anything in
Mm.
her whole life and that was a repeated statement and it kept going back to oh well that's everyone does that or that's not good enough or that's not that important and it really is important to recognize what you are capable of so that
Hmm.
you can recognize that you are the captain of your ship and you if you don't know you'll figure it out and that's okay like you want to recognize your accomplishments so that you know that you're capable.
For sure. Yeah. And celebrating every win, no matter how
Sure.
small you think it is absolutely what's going to set that foundation for what you view as a bigger win. And yeah, just knowing that you're worthy of everything that you're building, right? And that you are enough and you don't have to like live up to somebody else's enoughness, so to speak. Yeah, there's so many moving parts to this and all that you do, and I love that you're providing this work. I think it's really just essential at this time in our world for people of this cohort to just know that they're not crazy for one, right? That
Definitely.
because I think there's a lot of that, like um, the older generations, parents, grandparents, and whatnot, just they don't not understanding like what is happening here. Why is this going on, and why can't I fix it, and all of this. But they're not crazy. They just need a little bit of help and knowing how to find their inner child and get back to that creative, imaginative part of their mindset, and people like you are helping them get there. So that's really
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you. And I'd also like to say it will relieve a lot of stress and energy and pressure if you decide to take ownership of your life. And
Hmm.
that is very hard to do. And that is what I work with my clients about. But it's it's so empowering and stimulating and energizing to take control and dive in and be fully an active participant in your life that that's what I'm trying to help young adults do, because what I don't want is you to look back on your life and feel like you were living someone else's life, feel like you didn't were doing something that you didn't want to be doing, or feel like you weren't engaging. Like you just kind of let it pass you by.
Hmm.
And it might be scary to be in control. Like sometimes you might feel like, oh, I really wish someone made the decision for me. But in actuality, that is contributing to you feeling like you're not in control, and that is contributing to this anxiety and fear. So
Hmm.
it's challenging, but it feels ultimately better to be the adult in your own life.
Right. Absolutely. I would agree. Um, all of that. Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Tell us how outside of this space we can connect with you.
Absolutely. So my website is batoutahell.net. So it's BATOUTTAHELL.net. And then my Instagram and TikTok are bat.outta_hell. And yeah, we can start working together, or you can schedule a consultation and I can tell you a little bit more about me and the work that I do and how I do the work, and we can just chat. But absolutely, I'd love to speak with everyone. This is the work I enjoy doing, and I think that young people are the stewards of our planet, and the more that we can live in our truth and live our fullest, fiercest, most authentic life, the more that we can contribute to making the world how we want it to be.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all counting on you. Literally, the world is all counting on the younger generations. So
Yep,
it's absolutely something that is necessary to just help people work through. So thank you for the amazing work that you're doing and just meeting people right where they're at.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
I think this one leaves a lot to ponder. Where in the scene of parenting described in this episode do you see yourself and your own parenting style? If social media has influenced you to feel a certain way, to compare yourself to others, or generate other toxic thoughts, can you see how the same would be true for your kids? Are you judgmental or even cautious about freely, without criticisms, allowing your kids to follow their own interests? I really loved this episode today. I hope you did too. Give Hillary a follow on her socials and consider reaching out. Check out her website and learn more about how she can help. As always, please, of all the clicks you make today, make subscribing to this platform be one of them. Rate and review the episode whenever available. I love seeing your comments. If you have any suggestions for future guests, don't be shy about leaving them. please share this episode with a friend. See you next time, friends.